Good day, podcast community. Pete Kane here, Podcast Pete, and we're on there with Tubb, and we're going to be talking about a topic that's getting a lot of attention out there. It's holistic options. You know, we always want to take responsibility for who we are, what we're doing, and holistic is a big part of that. So, Jay, tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and we'll get into our podcast.
My name is Jay Tubb. I live here in the Richmond, Virginia area, and for the last 40 years, I've worked in the natural foods industry, but I've also been involved in different healing modalities through the years.
Hmm.
Um, Learned a lot, uh, put things into place, been involved in a lot of personal and emotional growth work,
Hmm.
which I think is, something that we all need because we don't have a manual. This is how you should, feel. I think there's a lot of, there's a lack of really good examples in our society, especially for men.
Yes, I totally agree. I found in my 400 and some podcasts and just conversing with people, and I believe the same thing you're talking about. Men have a harder time with the transparency of help. They want to be they want to be perceived as the macho kind of person that got
Right.
it all figured out, and we know we don't have it all figured out. We're a mess when it comes to going through life. What started like if you could look back in your 40-year journey, when did you kind of start pushing in to the holistic thinking and living?
Well, I guess there's several pieces to that. I got involved with the local natural foods co-op and
Hmm.
became a part of that. Seeking better food, and of course that got me involved with educating myself, learning more about supplements and vitamins, um, and also coming from a dysfunctional family scenario,
Hmm.
uh, kind of forced me at some point to have to ask for assistance. Get some therapy, go to some groups that help me move through some trauma, and just become emotionally literate,
Hmm.
which I remember sitting in a group of men, and the facilitator would say, "Well, how do you feel about that?" And everybody's head would turn and look at the wall where there was a chart of the feelings. And that's just how out of touch we all were with identifying what we were feeling. And
Hmm.
that's really toxic. And that's why so many people are chasing after escape mechanisms. That they don't know any different. Like alcohol can kind of numb you out from when you don't know how to deal with what's going on inside.
Yeah, we find like my mentor Brendan Bouchard talks a lot about the the coping mechanism of distraction that
Yeah,
social media provides us with plenty of ways to be distracted, and almost like alcohol can numb you into not having to deal with things. The same thing can happen with a habit like just scrolling or searching or
sure.
consuming. What would you say in your self-awareness journey? What were some of the things that you embraced that you saw the growth come from that you could share with our community?
Well, messing up a lot, and having to face things, but realizing I come from, well, there's a lot of alcoholism in my family of origin. So I had to deal with that. I got involved with adult children of alcoholics early on. And one of the things that's pointed out in there is that it's not just alcohol. It's not just drugs. It's people, places, and things that get us out of ourselves. It's always easier to project outwards than it is to look inwards. And
Mhm.
that's where the journey is discovering yourself, which is the best journey there is when you get there. I mean, easier said than done.
Yeah, it is. And I see like a lot of what's happening in the world is that if we take the journey of self-awareness and we start working on ourselves and going through that personal journey, we're more kind of patient with other people's views and ideas, where we don't get so angry at life, because it is a tough thing. But if we're being told to be strong and we got it all figured out, and we realize that that isn't necessarily the case, we end up putting so much weight on our shoulders that we fall into those habits like you described.
Yeah.
What about, when it comes to the supplementing of the body? I've always been aware of, we can't get everything from the foods that we have because of just mass producing things and chemicals. What do you say to our community when it comes to making those decisions to better supplement and fuel yourself? What have you found in your journey?
Well, lots of research and self education. And it's also very condition specific. If you want to think better, get I mean, ginkgo biloba is a well-known herb that sends more blood flow to your brain, so it
Hmm.
kind of wakes your brain up. And on the other side of that equation is people who have a hard time sleeping. Some people can use melatonin really well, but I've spoken to a lot of people who say they've told me that melatonin doesn't work for them. And my follow-up question was usually, is it because your brain won't shut up? And they go, yeah. So there are certain amino acids and herbs that can help uh, slow your brain down. They're called in inhibitory neurotransmitters, and
Hmm.
that's we're so stimulated in today's society, especially the fight or flight mechanism, that it's really hard for that to shut off, so we can get a good night's rest. So those are experiential things I've learned, and of course I've studied. I'm by no means a medical professional, but I've seen what works. I
Hmm.
have experience with herbs and vitamins and homeopathic medicine, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, if you would have told me 5 years ago that I was going to have, um, uh, the ability to kind of see my active brain work for me, and I would be journaling every day, I would have told you you're crazy, because I always had all these thoughts going through my head, but I never knew how to put the boundaries on them and the focus on them. Do you have some things that you could share with our community, like meditation or journaling or anything that helps you calm that active brain down?
Sure. I mean, um, definitely meditation is something I try to do every day. It's really produces more alpha brain waves, which is the kind of calm that we really want. It also makes us less liable to uh, get overwhelmed. Um, Exercise certainly is very beneficial for a number of reasons, but it also helps brain health because you get circulation going. It When you're more of a couch potato, which I have certainly been guilty of myself, uh, there's not as much um, well, exercise for your brain, really. I mean, is exercise for your body is exercise for your brain.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, good coping mechanisms. I mean, because there's a lot of really bad ones. Uh, talking, I mean, therapy, uh, talking to somebody who knows what they're doing. I mean, having friends is really important, but a mental health professional, uh, it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign that you're connecting with people around you, and that's something our society it really hasn't valued. I mean, there are a lot of very lonely people, and they're disconnected. I see that. I live in suburbia. You know, we don't have a community. You know, like in our street, there's not a lot of connection with between households. So that would be really good.
I've done some podcasts on it on the four human drivers, and the first one is aliveness, and you
Right.
get it from connection, meaningful purpose, and personal growth. And a lot of times that personal growth doesn't happen because we're not aware that, just like anything, if you're not growing, you're going downhill, or you're retreating. What would you say? Because I did it for a year and a half, hitting the gym at an early hour, and I decided to cut out sugar for 30 days to see how that would affect me. I was
Oh
amazed
yeah.
of what I just had gotten in a habit of a dessert after dinner,
Right.
or just picking up something sweet because it's kind of like enticing. But I realized it had something to do with my focus. I was losing that focus. Do you feel that in your journey, sugar has had a positive or negative effect on the way you think and operate?
Yes. But let me elaborate.
Okay.
uh, yeah, sugar is fun. I mean, it definitely produces dopamine like almost immediately. That's why it's so popular um, throughout human history. Uh, Sugar's been kind of rare. I mean, in nature, in Europe, we didn't have sugar cane. We had honey. You know, you go rob the bees for the honey.
Mhm.
Um, but it wasn't until the Middle Ages when uh, Crusaders went to the Middle East, they brought back date sugar candy, and because for them it was like cocaine or speed is now because they'd never had that concentrated sugar, and they're like have all this energy suddenly. But you know, it has its downside too, in that diabetes is like the burning out of the pancreas because you have sugar coming in constantly. The average American eats 150 pounds of sugar a year.
Wow.
Um, Early on, I read a book that I highly recommend called Sugar Blues
Mhm.
by William Duffy, and it details the history of sugar in Western civilization,
Hmm.
such as the Crusades. And there's a big tie with the slave trade because they would uh, bring slaves and sugar on the same ships, um, and uh, it's it's not. Uh, I'd say it has more adverse than positive things. I mean, everybody loves candy, but there's nobody. I mean, it's too easy. You know, you go into the convenience store or the grocery store uh, after the holidays, and they all have all the candy half price. Um, and it's empty calories by and large.
I lived next to a Whole Foods for about almost 2 years, and I would go in there, and it would be, such a cool experience. With you first see the fruits, you see all the fresh stuff. Then it was just like almost within a week. It was, I think, near Halloween or pretty close. I ended up going to a Walmart just because we had to pick up some things, and I was just floored by the whole front of the store was sugar. I mean, it had
Right.
sugar cookies, sugar this, sugar that. And I'm going, holy mackerel, what a difference in the two retailers. But I think it's real easy for us to go down the sugar path if we're not understanding of how it affects our body and what it does
It's
by.
addictive. It's addictive.
Yes, exactly. We think of like drugs as addiction, but a drug could be classified into the sugar intake.
Oh
150
yeah.
pounds is a lot of sugar. And I went to
Yep.
Europe 40 years ago, and I was in like Italy and Sturting, Australia, and I went by these bakeries, and it was the most gorgeous. I remember it to the day, gorgeous pastries you've ever seen. And then once you bite into them, it was like there was nothing because they didn't have the sugar intake that we have
Yeah.
over here. It was like I was expecting the sugar rush, but they didn't, embrace sugar like we do over here. And what a difference it played with my brain, because it looked like it was going to be a sugar high, but it wasn't. It just,
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Our body's very adaptive.
yeah.
And I know when I first read that book, Sugar Blues, 40 years ago, I consciously gave up sugar. And then after about a month, I remember trying a Coca-Cola, and I couldn't stand it. It was sickly sweet. But that was the thing that was like, an everyday normal thing. And
Right.
then all of a sudden now it's like I couldn't stand it. It was just too much. So we can adapt back to a lower, maybe saner level of sugar if we watch what we intake.
Yeah. What do you say, like, it seems like the supplement world, you go into a GNC or something, and you're overwhelmed by all the different options and choices. How do you help people navigate through this knowledge curve that is easier to manage, because the journey of 1,000 miles always starts with the first step. And if you say, I'm overwhelmed and never start, well, you're never going to kind of go down that path. What would you say to a beginner who's trying to figure out holistic choices? What would you say to them, and how could you help them today?
Well, if you're looking to address a specific condition, do the research, um, and don't listen to just what you hear on the radio, for instance. I remember back in the 90s when St. John's wort first got to be big. Uh, I was working in a health food store, and we couldn't keep it on the shelf. And I started asking people what they wanted it for. And it was pretty obvious that a lot of people were looking at it as a magic pill. Like they weren't after it because it would treat depression, which is what was being touted as.
Hmm.
Um, uh, but often I would just talk them into a multivitamin. So do your own research, find out. I mean, and that was before the internet was really big. So now, I mean, back then I used a lot of books, the information. Now everybody has a phone, they can Google and look specifically for natural remedies, herbs, and vitamins. Um, and take charge of your own health. That's something else that,
Yeah.
I think we uh, doctors mean well, but most of them get mark marketed to by pharmaceutical companies um, every day,
Mm.
and so that tends to be the tools that they use. And
Makes sense.
there's some doctors that are into natural medicine, integrative, alternative, complementary medicine. You can look for those in your area, but yeah, I mean, do your own research, empower yourself.
Yes.
Don't just hand over your power to the doctor who's going to write a prescription for you. The
Yeah.
prescription may be fine,
Mhm.
but there are usually alternatives.
Yeah, it's always like I like how you say you take that responsibility for your own journey because everybody's body is different. And if you think that this person takes this supplement and gets this result, you're going to get the same. It may be completely different. Like you
That's
said,
right.
melatonin, I mean, it can help some people, but some people it may not have any effect on it just because your body assimilates differently from one thing to another. So you have to go on your own journey. Well, as we finish up, I want to just have you talk about, because we have a way for people to get more of what your 40 years is a lot of testing, a lot of trying, a lot of education, and a lot of just your own journey. Like we talked last podcast about the eliminating things from your diet and coming up with things that you respond positively. Tell our viewers how they can get a hold of more. Maybe I don't want to spend 40 years figuring it out. I want Jay to help me do it in a less time. How could they get more access to you?
Reach out to me. I'm at tubbj@gmail.com, tubbjay@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook. That's an easy way to reach out to me. Um, Facebook Messenger, send me a message. I'll help you however I can.
Also, and what we're doing for our community is to make it easier to access the options that are out there. If you go to petekane.me/JTubb, you'll be able to connect with Jay, whether it's on the Facebook, whether setting up a time where you can kind of discover what's possible, because our journey of 1,000 miles starts with you leaning in to holistic and being more aware of your body and how you respond. So Jay, what would you say to our viewers? What would be the one thing you would want them to take home from our time on this podcast?
To make your own decisions, be accountable for your own health. Um, don't wait till something's broke to fix it. you know um and often that's how we know that we need to change course, of course. But um yeah, I mean, uh don't leave it all up to somebody else.
That's awesome. Great advice. And, they can follow you at any of your sites, but we're going to put them in one place so it'll be easier for people to get access to your 40-year journey, your understanding of that holistic living lifestyle, so people can have those choices. So, Jay, thank you so much for sharing with our community what we were able to really talk about today is that holistic journey. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.